Hello, 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 and welcome back to Coach's Corner. It is a Tuesday morning. It is June 25th as we are approaching quickly the month of July. We'll get July 4th. We'll get all the fun festivities of that with fireworks. No Joey Chestnut. And, we'll enjoy the water and whatnot and all that good stuff. But today we have business to take care of. We have to talk about a golfer that is approaching, I would say quickly, one of the best runs we've ever seen from a golfer since Tiger Woods. We have an up and coming star, an all star that was now the highest paid player in his team's history. And we have two, not one, but two brand new champions of their respective sports. And we're going to start on the ice. We're going to start with the puck that happened last night. And it was some exciting puck. It was some really exciting stuff happening. The Oilers had come all the way back from 3-0 to force this Game 7 in Florida against the Panthers. And it provided some great high-level hockey. The tension was in the building. The Panthers come out, they score the first goal, then Edmonton answers, and then the Panthers in the second period score what would eventually be the game-winning goal, the go-ahead goal, I guess, in the second period. And the third period set up for a dramatic finish where the Oilers had the puck, in Florida's zone for what felt like an eternity, and they just couldn't get anything going. And like I said, it was high-level hockey, and I think it's one of those things where it was weird because everyone was kind of tuning in, and I don't think that happens for hockey very often. But obviously with NBA done, baseball's not quite in people's forefront of their minds. Everyone even the casuals all tuned into hockey, and everyone was kind of trying to quickly understand what they were watching. But even the people that I know that enjoy hockey were pumped about it, thought it was a very awesome game. And I think it's safe to say that was probably the biggest hockey game in modern history, just because, it had all the storylines, it had everything you could imagine a hockey game having and more. It was, legacy talk. The team that was the best team in the NHL for the entire year ended up winning. Canada doesn't win a Stanley Cup for another year. Since 1993 was the last time teams won it, and that was Montreal. Just the many storylines that were going into this last game, I think delivered. McDavid kind of stunk the game. He played a lot, so obviously he was tired, and he won the Conn Smythe, which is best playoff guy. But I was going to come on here and hopefully going to talk about maybe one of the best comebacks a team has ever made in sporting playoff history, and McDavid was going to be up there for best player in his respective sport, which he still is. But once again, the Stanley Cup evades their big star, and we have to wait another year to see if maybe he gets back there. Maybe he doesn't. Championship windows don't always last forever. Hockey's a very up and down kind of sport, and who knows if he'll be back. I'm sure he will, but who knows? And so a very exciting game comes down to the wire, and I think hockey is very grateful for that. And if you want to buy stock in a league, I think right now hockey might be a good league to buy that stock in. There's a couple new teams that are going to be coming in. Utah has a team now. Seattle's a brand new team. Some exciting times are happening in hockey where I don't think people would have thought that 5 years ago. I think they're starting to get some buzz. And that Game 7 I think was a great launching point for maybe a new market of fans. And so very exciting. And then the College World Series happened. Tennessee Volunteers are unfortunately champions as well. And Tennessee is probably one of my least favorite teams. Not probably. They are one of my least favorite teams. I've known a lot of Tennessee fans. None of them have been good fans. Frankly, they all stink of, this weird. It's almost like they think they're privileged, but they haven't won anything. And, normally they come up short, but this Tennessee team ended up winning it all. And it's weird because of the year of wire-to-wire champions continues. The Celtics were largely probably going to be the favorites. They won it all. The Panthers, I think they had the best season, so they ended up winning it all. And then Tennessee was the number one team in the nation, and they ended up winning it all. So it's a great year to be a wire-to-wire champion. I'm just praying that doesn't mean Philadelphia Phillies are the World Series champions. And you heard me say it before, but the best champion doesn't always win, and baseball's probably the hardest to win it in, so that bodes well for me, but good Lord, I hope the Phillies don't win it all. That team, I don't think I could live with the seeing a Bryce Harper World Series. It would kind of eat me alive, and I don't want to be in a world that happens. So let's keep our fingers crossed that doesn't happen, and we can just happily enjoy Philadelphia misery if they lose in the playoffs, which hopefully they will. And so, heading from one sport to another, NBA draft is tomorrow, but there is some business to be taken care of. There are some trades that probably do need to happen, but there is a player that got extended. The Toronto Raptors decided to pay Scottie Barnes a 5-year max up to $270 million, and he is now the highest paid in Raptors history. And I would say that's an interesting stat, but I mean, that's kind of just the way the market's going. TV money, obviously, players are just going to end up being the highest paid player in their team's history. That's just going to happen with the new money because, inflation, all that good stuff. But regardless, Scottie Barnes gets some max, and I would say it's a deserved max for him because he is a one-time All-Star and he is a Rookie of the Year, and I think he is kind of the piece that they want to build around. He is their franchise guy, and although he got hurt and that kind of ended his season prematurely last year, Scottie Barnes is a good foundational piece to build around because he is an all-around player. He does play both sides of the ball fairly well. I think he has a young team around him. It's one of those, it's not a lot of superstars. It's a lot of good players. And, if he doesn't get hurt, they'd probably squeeze into the play-in, They probably do need to make a swing, some sort of swing. If they want to maximize Scottie Barnes, they probably do need to make a, play for another big guy. And, I mean, we'll see if they end up, doing that because, I mean, they did when they got Kawhi Leonard and they ended up winning a final series, and maybe they try and, go for that, another 1-year rental that maximizes Scottie Barnes and whatnot. But that's, like I said, he's already been paid, but now we have to look at that draft class because I feel like that's always, who's going to be the first domino of their draft class respectively to, get paid and, kind of see who sets the tone. Scottie Barnes is that guy. And so now we have to look at some of the upcoming names. Some of the guys include Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Franz Wagner, Jalen Johnson, Alperen Sengun. Those are guys I feel like you are going to be paid by their teams. They should be paid. Cade Cunningham is the backbone of the Pistons, what little backbone they have. Jalen Green kind of is weird because he always starts off slow, but he comes on strong towards the end of the season, really proves himself as the scorer. Evan Mobley, I feel like is, they clearly want to build around him as their big man and get rid of Jared Allen at some point. I love Franz Wagner for the Magic. It feels like he's one of their foundation guys with Paolo Banchero. Then Jalen Johnson for the Hawks. I love Jalen Johnson. I feel like he is, once again, a foundational player. And then Alperen Sengun is another guy who, once again, started playing well, but then he got hurt. So it'll be interesting to see. The Rockets have to pay both Sengun and Green, so we'll see if they have to make a decision there, if they trade one of those guys. I don't know. But some interesting names outside of those guys that can be extended. Jalen Suggs, he kind of started off his career disappointing. Came on strong as a defensive guard, but the Magic, once again, they have to pay a couple guys now. Do they do Suggs, Wagner, or both? Jonathan Kuminga, it sounds like the Warriors are very high on him, although Steve Kerr never wants to play him for some reason. Do they sign him to a deal? It feels like he's a pretty easy guy to, replace Draymond whenever that time comes, but there's still just a weird tension in the air with Kuminga and the Warriors. Name I just talked about a couple shows ago, Josh Giddey. Do the Bulls end up extending him to be their, they want to say he's the ball handler of the future. Do they want to extend him? Do they want to, just ride it out? And then Trey Murphy III for the Pelicans. So I think he's an interesting player, but the Pelicans, once again, they're a team that they have to pay some guys. And so we'll see, but that's one of those things. You always have to look towards the next, guys after someone gets paid. Like it happens in football with the quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence just got paid, so Tua's next, Dak is next. Because it's already that guy is dealt with. Like Scottie Barnes is done. Like he's going nowhere for the next couple of years at least. who's going to be that next crop of young talent to get paid? Because I mean, it's a weird group of names I listed because none of them do feel like superstars, but it's mainly because I just think they're not on good teams or they're just not the stars of their team. Because you look at the teams that are good here, like Evan Mobley, they have Donovan Mitchell, Franz Wagner, they have Paolo Banchero, Jalen Johnson, they have Trae Young. A lot of these guys are, it's like they're not the main guys, so we're not getting that. This isn't a group where it's like these are the next crop of superstars. Like Ant-Man was last class before this one. Like it's an interesting group of players that I do think are going to get paid, and we're going to look at the contracts and be confused. But like in reality, it's just how the market is going. And then we're just going to move on to a different sport entirely, something I don't talk about a lot, and that is golf. And, I didn't touch on the Travelers Championship yesterday just because of, multiple news things that did happen over the weekend. But Scottie Scheffler, once again, won another tournament. He's on one of the more, I'd say, absurd runs that we've ever seen an athlete, go on. And it was funny. I was gonna say Connor McDavid. Have we seen like a player other than on a hotter run, in their sport than Scottie Scheffler? And I was gonna say Connor McDavid, but they lost last night. So for that reason, what are we doing here? So with that being said, here are Scottie Scheffler's last couple of tournaments. Arnold Palmer win the Players Championship, win Texas, he tied for second. The Masters, he won. Heritage, he won. The PGA Championship, jail. A little bit of a curveball there. The Schwab, he tied for second. Memorial, he won. U.S. Open, he shouldn't have shaved. That's what the tweet says. Then the Travelers Championship, he won. So just an absurd run for Scottie Scheffler. And I mean, we have to look back now, I think, at history. We have to look at many players that are, doing what he's doing, and there's not a lot of them. So Tiger Woods is probably the most famous athlete to, or the most, like, I guess, hottest run that he went on. And it's one of those things where it's just he has such a hold over all these guys right now that it's just something that I don't think we've seen many players, do. And it's one of those. Golf is one of those sports where it's like I mentioned it a couple shows ago, where it's like who's not going to screw up the end of the tournament? Who's going to make the mistake, and that's probably going to be the loser. And it's kind of a mistake off. But the thing is whenever Scottie Scheffler is in this mix, whoever he's going against, the pressure is infinitely higher against them than it is on Scottie Scheffler, because although there is like this level of he has to maintain of being great, the guys who aren't at his level have to step up to that. And Tom Kim was unfortunately the victim this past week. And it's like a David versus Goliath situation where David is just getting crushed every time, whether he likes it or not. He's getting beat up. And, it's just one of those things, watching a player mow down his competition in the way that he's playing, and just it's an unbelievable streak, because I think we've seen players get hot and, have their runs and whatnot, like Jordan Spieth and whatnot, but they haven't won, I don't think, this much in a one calendar year, and it's only June, so like there's still a whole another half of the year. Now there's only like one more major left, but I mean, if he wins that, then I mean, we have to talk about greatest year for a golfer, in some time. And like I said, since Tiger Woods, and I wasn't around in those 2000s, or I wasn't conscious in those early 2000s for Tiger Woods' run, Scottie Scheffler has to be up there in that conversation for just how good he is right now, how locked in he is. So it's just something that's fascinating to me to watch, and it's in one of those things. I'm just in awe watching Scottie Scheffler do his thing. He's just very good at it. So I think that does it for me. That's all I gotta say. not an entirely long show here. Like I said, I'm gonna maybe try and touch more on the NBA draft tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get some deals happening in the nighttime that gives us some good stuff to talk about tomorrow. But for now, we have two champions. We have some players getting paid. Kenny Atkinson got hired by the Cavaliers. That was another thing. I mentioned, Evan Mobley and the Cavs. They hired Kenny Atkinson, an experienced coach who turned down the Hornets job a couple years ago. To stay with the Warriors, which is probably a good decision, but he is back in the head coaching space, and I think he's a really good head coach. Comes from the Hawks, when I watched him back in the day, so I'm happy to see him get a new job. We'll see. I mean, was this a Donovan Mitchell pleasing hire? Like, is this just that, or is he actually going to be sticking around for, maybe a potential post Donovan Mitchell era? I don't know. We'll see what the Cavaliers do. So, with all that being said, I'll leave you guys to your day. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, any of those good things. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.